Welcome to the Boundless Freedom Show. My name is Deborah Chelette-Wilson, and I'm excited to share with you my new friend, Kandy Graves, who is a quantum coach and does many, many other things. And I'll just kind of let you introduce yourself to everyone and share with your boundless experience and things that you've done as far as educating yourself about all of these wonderful things you do.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. Thank you so much for having me. So I was raised by a woman that was very Western medicine oriented. And so we were at the doctor all the time for every little thing. She also had an addiction, a prescription pill addiction. That's maybe that will enter into this conversation. But I think that just set me up for, kind of really gave me that push or nudge into the direction of considering alternative healing. And I have been blown away, particularly with the power of thought and the power of our mind. And then there are energy modalities that I use that, I had struggled for a very, very long time prior to using some of these energy technologies. And everything just changed so quickly. While I don't tell everyone I don't tell anyone to get off medication, I feel like our worlds align because that's just who I am. Mm-hmm. I'm an advocate for anything holistic and just away from the medication route. I think it's a level of insanity to take medication for a particular thing, and then a side effect as it is an increased possibility of the very thing that you're actually taking medication for. So I look at that and go, okay, might want to rethink that. So.
Well, I can relate to what you're saying because I have been had some very not great experiences with medication because the side effects, if there's a side effect, I'm going to have it. And actually, and so if it's going to make someone drowsy, it will knock me out. And so actually I've even been prescribed pediatric dosages. So, a person's system, there's not one size fits all as far as I'm concerned. I'm not anti-medication either. I think that sometimes it's necessary, but I think that we need to be careful with it because not everybody's body is the same.
So true. Yeah. In fact, I know there is a genetic testing that they're doing now that will help a person know the exact medications that their body would actually respond to best. Oh. So, I don't know a ton about that, but I had a client mention it to me. The energy modalities that I use, I don't, you want me to introduce that possibility now or?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. I mean, okay. Kind of, and then you can kind of back up and say let us know how you got into all of it.
Okay. Yeah, very good. So the energy healing modalities that I utilize are ones that worked for me and really spoke to me. So I do NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. I do inner child work, and I have certifications from the Hypnosis Institute in Tarzana, California for that. I do family systems work, and I do healing trauma, and I use a very powerful epigenetic technique. We call it EGT for short, and It's really, really powerful. And it's like 95% effective to EMDR's 85% effectiveness, which I think is phenomenal.
Oh, that is.
Yeah, and tapping, EFT,
Mm-hmm.
emotional freedom technique. I use that in the early days. I will still do that sometimes, just depending on the intuitive read that I get from a client. That might be just what really works for them. And that particular technique is about 65% effective. And this effectiveness that I'm mentioning is in healing painful memories, all the way to PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
So my EGT technique is really my ace in the hole. It's 95% effective and greater, in healing painful memory. So
so you have many. Yeah, you have many tools in your toolbox,
yes,
which speaks also to what I said earlier about one size doesn't always fit all.
exactly.
So you kind of intuit what someone needs based on your experience and what they're telling you, so that it's kind of more of an individualized experience.
It really is. And, I train other people to do what I do too. And I've had so many say to me, well, okay, just give me from A to Z, what I do. 1 to 26, what do I do? And I'm like, doesn't work like that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so it's basically, you can't tout yourself as an energy therapist without utilizing energy and being able to read that energy and to know exactly what that person needs. And it's never me that knows what it needs. Like, it's never me that knows what this person here needs. I go here and I go here. Mm-hmm. So that I just do what I am intuitively told, inspiration, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. So there's a spiritual dimension to that as well.
It's 100% spiritual, in my opinion. At least it is for me. Maybe not all energy therapists, but for sure me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's where your guidance comes from.
It truly is. Yeah. And so kind of how I got into the work is I had some pretty traumatic experiences, and definitely PTSD. And because I was actually born addicted to my drug addict mother. And this was, 1961, when it wasn't, it wasn't the household phrase that it is today, right? Prescription pill addiction, opioid addiction is, we have a real problem in this country, particularly in the state that I live in. I live in Utah. We have a big, big problem. So, in fact, I live in the highest benzodiazepine and antidepressant dispensing county in the United States.
Wow.
So it's like right here in my backyard. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so, you can't be raised in a home where, the mother in this family, because moms are really the nucleus of a family, right? And she had a very serious prescription pill addiction. She came by it honestly, which most people do. She does come from a very long line of drug addicts and alcoholics, however. But she was in a really bad car accident and was injured severely. She had third-degree burns on her legs from this car accident in 1947. And she was 17 years old, and she was given little packets of powdered morphine. And that was her pain control. So you fill in the blanks from there.
Right. Well, I have found that people who have addictions also have a lot of trauma.
They really try
And
to
it's
go together.
and it's unresolved. So they're just trying
Yeah,
to find ways not to feel what they're feeling.
it's self-medicating for sure.
Right.
It's a coping mechanism, and not everybody turns to drugs and alcohol. There's a myriad of things that we do to cope. Food is probably the most abused substance. Sugar, right?
Right.
Yeah, so obesity, it lends itself to, in fact, I just right off the top of my head, members of my family, my husband's family, and clients that are morbidly obese, every single one of them have endured trauma. And one of my biggest traumas, I had absolutely repressed it. And this is what I teach my clients, is if you don't deal with it, at some point it will come out, and it usually comes out sideways. And for me, that is exactly what was happening. So I knew, it's so strange, because when I think back over my childhood, it's like I knew that I was going through something that was really, that it was defining who I was. I knew that just instinctively. But it didn't mean I didn't get pulled in and really get into the trauma, right? And as a child, we really are just at the mercy of the adults in our lives, right?
Absolutely.
And by age 7, our subconscious is fully programmed, and then we spend the rest of the time in that home, in that family of origin, locking in, or looking for the evidence to prove what we're seeing, right? And it's just the nature of the beast. So homeostasis comes into play. I mean, I could go into a lot of detail about it, but suffice it to say that we're just, we really are products of our environment. Yeah, there's some genetic stuff for sure, I believe, but I've seen it so dramatically played out that it's really more about the example that's set for us and what we're seeing. We're really cooked in energy soup.
That's a good way to put it.
Just infused with the energy around us and the beliefs of our parents.
Right, and it's not all about us, but we're absorbing it. We're absorbing it.
Yeah. And P.S., my parents had parents that programmed them, and their parents and their parents, and so I spent a lot of time in my adult life blaming my mom, because I could enlist anyone's sympathy. My mom was a drug addict. Oh my goodness, so that story, I lived that story, and I led with that story.
And in a way, that story kind of kept you from being able to get free of it.
The only way you can become free is to accept full responsibility and accountability. And I know I go head to head sometimes with people that have had abuse. I myself was abused. I can't take responsibility for what someone else did, but I can certainly take responsibility for my response.
For what you do with what they did. Exactly.
Yeah. I could continue to tell the story, oh, my mom was a drug addict. In fact, I've known for 25, 30 years that I was born addicted. And it's only been in the last 4 or 5 years that I even share that, because I was so ashamed of it for so long. But it is what it is, and I don't share it for sympathy. I share it to help people see that even if your brain is wired in a very unique way, which mine is, you can overcome anything. Absolutely.
Right. And I think that's what's really important. And that's, part of why I have Boundless Freedoms as my show, is because as a trauma survivor myself, there is life after trauma. And we just hear kind of the bad news instead of, wait a minute, there's all these ways that in the last 30 years that we've come to learn so much about the impact of trauma on child development.
Oh, yeah.
And how we carry that into our adult lives. But then also, I know the work that you do and the work that I do is to help people put their dots together and let go of what doesn't really belong to them, so they can take responsibility for for their healing and for moving forward and having what I call post-traumatic growth and development. And learning to thrive in life instead of just surviving. And that's exactly what you help people with.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's a really important message, but it's not only that you've gone and learned different modalities and you have done a lot of research, but you've experienced it yourself and are, like an inspiration for other people to see that this is possible.
This is exactly why I share my story, because so as a business, I've done this 20 years. And my healing journey really began the moment of birth. I mean, technically all of us, right? It's so interesting. I want to share a really significant component to the EGT method that I use. It is content free. So let me give you an example, which just means you don't have to share with me the details of your trauma. By the way, you re-injure yourself every time you have to tell it, and then I get secondary PTSD as a result of hearing it, right? And so this EGT is content free. Case in point, I have a friend of mine who reached out to me on Facebook recently and said that she works construction. It's just what she likes to do. And she said there's a man on her crew, and they are near a particular Air Force, or actually it's an Army base here in Utah. They're working right by it. And so there are helicopters that fly over, multiple times a day. Mm-hmm. And she says this man absolutely loses it every single time a helicopter approaches. Mm-hmm. He is back in the trauma, shaking, pacing. She says it's just breaking her heart to watch. So she reached out to me because she knows what I do. Mm-hmm. And she said, can you help him? And I said, I can. And so she approached him, and he said, oh, you don't understand. I can't get help. And she said, why? And he said, because I have sworn myself to secrecy. The things that I did and what the Army required of me, I cannot tell a single soul. And so she came back to me and told me that, and I said, oh, he doesn't have to. It's 100% content free. All he has to do is hold it in mind. He just has to think about it. And I do the rest. The energy healing does the rest. This technique does the rest. So it's exciting.
Yes. Yeah, because when I work with people that have trauma, I mean, if they want to bring it up, that's fine. But I focus more on what they need to do, to take responsibility for themselves. And I do a lot of education too, just helping people understand just how our body and emotions and all of that and experience and how that plays out, especially as young children, when you say, we're just at the mercy of adults. So all of what's that content that we get from them is going into us, becoming our beliefs and our perceptions. And those things can all be let go of without having to re-traumatize anybody.
Yeah, it's really phenomenal. If you don't mind, I'll share just this major trauma that I'm not going to tell you exactly about the trauma, but this is a trauma for me that occurred when I was 9 years old. And I had absolutely no recall of it. But fast forward, and I'm married with 3 little boys, and my husband would always gather them around and try to honor me on Mother's Day. And he was always very conscious of that and wanted to make sure that the boys honored me and he honored me. And it was very sweet. However, I wasn't having it. I turned into the Wicked Witch of the West. I really truly just was a monster, and I was angry, I was upset, I cried a lot. This started like 2 days prior to Mother's Day, and then a couple of days after it lingered, and then I went back into my normal mode. I had no idea at the time that was even, I had no understanding of that could possibly be some sort of a trauma in my life. I had no idea. So, fast forward, and I'm getting into this to healing work, and I'm studying and certifying in multiple technologies and modalities, and this memory began to surface for me. And today I have full recall of the event, and I have a smile on my face. When it first popped up, or when it first started to bubble up, I was literally curled up in the fetal position. I was a hot mess. And what I know about that event, and that I can share and will share, is that when I was 9, I'm the baby of the family, and my sister, just older than me, was 16. And she and I together saved my mother's life. She had attempted suicide. And so it was highly traumatic for me. However, the thing that I did remember once this all came to light and I was able to heal it, is that event occurred on Mother's Day.
Oh, okay. That was the connection.
That was the connection. And I had absolutely zero understanding of that. And the reason I wasn't accepting love and honoring from my own family is because that little 9-year-old had a secret. And her secret was that she didn't actually want to save Mom's life that day. She wanted, because I knew that if we had just left her, she would have died. And a part of me felt that might be the end of my sadness, or the end of my trauma and my pain. What I was able to do is that I used a technique called reparenting, which is really, really powerful. And I've basically reparented my entire childhood doing that. So the adult me could have compassion on that little 9-year-old. Because of course she felt that way.
Sure.
That would be a normal response, but she had no one to tell, no one to help her understand that. And so the adult me helped my 9-year-old me understand that. And I was carrying around an immense amount of guilt, because I thought, oh my gosh, anybody that wants their own mother to die has some serious issues, has a big, big problem, right? And so I pushed it down fiercely,
right,
not to look at it, So I'm happy and healthy today, and Mother's Day comes, and it's joyful,
So I think what you're sharing is that when we don't express and process and integrate the experiences that we've had that have been maybe overwhelming, traumatic, etc., stressful. I mean, when you think of a child dealing with something like that, they are, it's a no-win situation. They have nowhere to go except for their survival system to kick in and push that memory away because it's just too much.
Right.
And so we think we don't remember we don't remember things, but it's because they were so overwhelming. It's our body's designed to protect us.
Yeah.
But I just don't feel like as human beings we were meant to have to live like that either.
No.
And I would love to see more islands of safe people, islands of safety.
Yeah, I love
for people to be able to have safe spaces.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to say it. Islands of safe people. That's great. So quantum physics has now proven that. So we're all familiar with the EEG, which is what measures our brain waves. But science has discovered that the MEG, which is the magnetoencephalogram, the very things that they can find in the EEG actually show up in our energy field, and that's what the MEG is all about. So literally, we are magnets for people with like resonating beliefs, right, or perceptions. So it's not an accident when I sit down with a client and they may have alcoholism or drug addiction in their life, and then they tell me, like every one of my siblings, we have all married alcoholics because our mom was or our dad was. My siblings and I all married addicts. It's just because of homeostasis, which is what our comfort zone, what we're comfortable with, quote, comfortable, or what's familiar, right? That familiarity brings us together, and it's, I can dance that dance. I know how to do that. I've worked with clients that are in multiple relationships, and have divorced multiple times, and all married abusive men. And it's because, it's like we're carrying this banner that says, I can be abused. I know how to do that because that's the energy I was infused with growing up. And so the people with the banner that says I'm an abuser, those people are
it's like a match. It's like a match.
It's a match, yeah.
Except it's an unconscious match.
It is. It 100% is.
And so becoming self-aware is really what's missing for most of us. Because once you become self-aware of all that, then you can do something about it, where you come in. And I come in our work with people, is helping them connect those dots and get out of that match.
And you literally, like, for example, with, all the modalities I use, alter the energy that we're in. And so now you're sending out a better frequency, a different frequency, a higher calibrating frequency. And I've always shared it like, dolphins find their way around a dark ocean with sonar, right? They send out this sound, and based on how that sound comes back to them, they know what's out there. And it's black, they can't see, but they navigate beautifully with sound. So similarly, we're doing the same thing. We're sending out a beacon, a frequency, a broadcast, and the world answers it. And that's why those people that we find in our lives come back to us. So my technical title is pattern breaking energy therapist, because patterns are meant to be identified, and then it's great if it's a great pattern.
Right.
Keep it, right? If it's bringing you happiness and success, then by all means, that's great. But if it's a pattern, if I can help a client step back and go, okay, let's take this, climb the top of the hill and look down at the scene, and let's see if we can't pick out a pattern. And sometimes they come to me with absolute knowing of the pattern, and other times they're a deer in headlights. They have no clue. It's just, I'm unhappy and I continue to create unhappiness for myself and everyone around me, and I'm tired of it and I want to change it. And then I get very, very happy because we can't do that.
Right. Yeah. So there is life even after all of this unconscious stuff that we grew up with.
Absolutely.
I think that's a new kind of awareness in humanity.
Yes.
That we do have the power to transform ourselves.
Yes.
That we're not just locked into some kind of genetic code.
No.
That through experience we can shift and change things.
Right. There's a collective consciousness, and I like, to me, what it looks like or feels like is just a leveling up, but it's like a spiral. And we're just we're becoming more conscious and more aware.
Right. Actually, I use a slinky to demonstrate what you just said, is that it sometimes seems like we're going back and rehashing the same old thing.
Yes.
But we're really seeing it on a different level.
Yes.
And it's really evidence of our growth and our development.
Absolutely.
Beyond what we thought we had to be stuck with.
Exactly. That's the visual, is the slinky. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And, I don't talk about it a lot, but there are people that, some people are privy to this information, but we really can. Energy work can alter DNA, and there is actual cellular change that takes place. So we really become new creatures. We are new and improved.
That's kind of the mind-blowing stuff that I get into as I research this and learn more and more. It's so, we have so been taught to limit our perception of how incredibly we have been designed.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And that's what I think about my own abilities, how they've grown, and how I've gone beyond what I had believed was even possible for me.
Completely.
And have such a more sense of freedom and being kind of comfortable in my own skin is what I say.
Yeah, no, sure.
Because of having my own PTSD experiences and those symptoms, and wondering if it was ever going to go away, and am I just stuck and have to manage all this stuff, kind of the old paradigm. But the quantum field has really opened up so much.
It's so exciting.
It really is. And I just want everybody to be able to experience like a life of thriving and creative expression and joy and love. And
it's so possible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just kind of a hairy-fairy kind of thing anymore. It's actually, I'm living it, you're living it.
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I had a pretty significant trauma occur about 6 years ago. And I'm blown away by how quickly I was able to move through that in comparison to, the work done previously that I did. So just having the awareness and the understanding, you're halfway there in awareness. When you're, this is a trauma. Oh my goodness, this is how I respond. Not unlike our computers, that you and I are working from right now. our brains go offline, and our computers sometimes do too. And that offline state, we do that as a way to cope in the moment with the trauma that we are facing. And there's some phenomenal modalities that just get in there and get after it. And it is, it doesn't have to cripple you for the rest of your life. It just doesn't.
Right. And to me, that's the message that people need to hear, that there are ways of moving beyond where they think they're stuck and there's no hope for them, and that they don't have to go and rehash everything.
No. I relived so many things, and it's not to say that today I don't use neuro-linguistic programming, because I do, because there are some things that need to be said out loud. And, now I'm getting into meridians and the chakras and all of that, a lot of people consider it is Eastern, and they consider it woo-woo. And trust me, I was in the front of that line for a very long time, but I just can't deny, the healing that has taken place. I literally was going to be on the very same trajectory that my mom's life was on, because I was depressed. I didn't feel good about myself, and a lot of that, she imprinted on me her own beliefs about herself. And I as a child was in that energy soup, and I got that. And so when I could see that the route, I have to see someone, I have to change this, I have to fix this. And I go into a counselor, and they want to just, look at the watch in 50 minutes. Okay, you're done talking. Didn't matter where I was, what I was experiencing. And I was, I might have been fully back in some sort of memory or trauma, and I had to leave, right? And then the other option was medication, and I did it for a while, and was like, okay, I feel worse now. And admittedly, watching a woman for the whole of 18 years of my life, putting in a pill for everything, right? I wasn't too keen on that, at least that much, right? I was like, if I have to, I will, but it was really, really difficult for me. In fact, in the old days, every pill would get stuck right here.
Oh, wow.
Even if it was, Advil or Tylenol, and all of that had to do with, my beliefs around what I had been infused with. So the fact that, the more the better you can do. And so healing for me today is swift and quick. And in comparison to years ago, just so much faster, and with actually a lot of joy. And if people could understand that there's actually joy in understanding. And today I absolutely love and honor my mom. She really, truly was my greatest teacher. And I'm so grateful for her. And I know I have a lot of people that look at me sideways when I say that, but I really, really, truly am. I do believe she was doing the best she knew how.
Right. Well, you see her humanity, not just as a parent and all the shoulds.
Absolutely.
Which I understand that as well. But
sure.
She was a person before she was a parent. That doesn't excuse what she did, and the experiences that you had with her. But there is a healing even to that people need to understand, I think, to be aware of. I don't know that if it's true for everyone,
Right.
But I know I healed some things with my mom as well.
Yeah.
And
Forgiveness is so important, right?
mhm.
And my mom's long gone. She passed away in 2002, and um, forgiving her was my gift to me.
Right, right. I get that. Yeah, I love the definition of forgiveness is giving up the right for revenge.
There you go. Yeah.
And so, being able to let go of it, that helped me heal me.
Mm.
And then I didn't do it for my mom. I did it for me because I'm the
Right.
one
Yeah.
carrying all
Yes.
that anger and resentment and confusion and
Yes.
self-blame and self-hate. And so being able to be free of that, it does lift such a
Oh,
burden.
my goodness. Yeah.
So if people would like to work with you and find out more, where can they go?
Well, my website is asyouThinkYouAre.com, because that's true, as you think you are.
Right.
And that comes from that the scripture, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so he," which I just love. I really just resonated with that and identified with it. So asyouThinkYouAre.com is my website. My email is just simply coachcandy@gmail.com or quantumcoachcandy@gmail.com.
And Candy is spelled with a K.
It is with a K. Yes.
So that would be
forgiveness lesson for my mother again.
Well, it has been such a joy visiting with you today.
Thank you.
And I look forward to maybe doing some more interviews with you, or just keeping in touch and seeing how things go for you.
Absolutely. Open to possibility, right?
Absolutely. And discovering what our boundless freedoms are in our own individual lives.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.